Telecaster was known as the Telecaster, the original incarnation was released being called the Broadcaster, but after legal disputes with Gretsch, who had a drum kit of the same name, they ended up scrubbing the name off the top of the headstock, and the guitar was then known as the Fender Nocaster because of the lack of name on the top of the headstock. Eventually, they settled on Telecaster, and that is the guitar that up until today you know and love. Despite the different variations on the name, one thing rang true with all of the original Fender Teles in the early 50s, and that was the lovely classic Butterscotch Blonde colour. Fast forward to the modern day, and of course there are now a lot more incarnations of the Fender Tele than there were back in the day. But one thing that always remains consistent is the ability to get a Butterscotch Blonde Telecaster no matter what price point or what series you're buying from. So today what we want to do is go through a Blonde Telecaster at every single price point and talk through the differences and who they might suit. The first one we're going to look at today is the Squier Affinity Telecaster. Now the Affinity series is probably, I would say, the second most affordable series in the Fender and Squier range, and these guitars boast really good value that make them perfect for beginners or people who just don't want to spend over the odds for a guitar. Up until this year, however, they've never really had a proper blonde Tele. They always had this weird orange colour that was kind of close, but not close enough. However, 2021 came around, they refreshed the Squier Affinity range, and that included the iconic Butterscotch Blonde Affinity Telecaster that we have today. At under £200, these guitars are great value. They sound incredible. They really do rival some of the guitars a bit further up in the range. Next up, we've got the Squier Classic Vibe 50s Tele. The Squier Classic Vibe range is there to give you authentic, vintage-inspired, yet affordable guitars from Fender's illustrious history that don't necessarily break the bank, that make it great for someone looking for an affordable guitar that's true to the classic instruments that we know and love. You're going to find vintage pickups, vintage style hardware with very authentic features and appointments that stay true to the classic 50s Teles of the past. The Classic Vibe series in the Squier range is probably just about the best quality Squiers that you can get without breaking into the lower echelons of Fender. And speaking of Fender, The next guitar is our first Fender in the range. This is the Player Telecaster. The Player series are the most affordable Fender guitars that you can buy, and the Player Telecaster is a modern mid-range workhorse that is great value, sounds good, and it's got Fender written on the headstock. They're extremely functional, they don't break the bank, and they're great for someone who wants a Fender but doesn't necessarily want to start paying upwards of $1,000 and more than that for a guitar. Next up, we are going to go a little bit left field now with a guitar that's not necessarily a normal standard Telecaster. It's known as a Nashville Telecaster from the newly released Player Plus series. It's worth pointing out at this moment that above the Player series, alongside the next series we're going to discuss, you also have the Vintera series, which is Fender's equivalent of the classic vibe, Vintera being short for vintage era, meaning you can get the same sort of classic recreations of Fender's historical guitars, such as the 50s Telecaster. However, we're going to go a little bit left field with the next price range and go to the modern, ultra high-tech, high-performance cousin of the Vintera series, which is the newly released Player Plus series. More specifically in there, they released a Player Plus Nashville Telecaster, which has an added middle pickup in between the bridge and the neck, which gives you all of those out of phase mid-range tones that you would expect to see from a Stratocaster. This is a great alternative for someone who wants the classic Fender color, but wants something that's a little bit more versatile sounding and a bit more modern in terms of the specs, things like the high performance bridges and the locking tuners, as well as the advanced tonal options via the push-pull button on the tone knob. Next, we're going to go to Japan. Now, if you haven't seen my video that I did on Fender Japan and what the deal is with them, it might be worth going and getting a little bit of context behind what Fender Japan is. Essentially, the long and short of it is there isn't a standard range of Fender Japanese guitars like there are with Mexican and American, but instead you get a lot of limited edition kind of once they're gone, one-off special runs, which can provide some pretty great results. One of these limited edition guitars is the traditional limited edition 70s Telecaster Deluxe. Now, the Deluxe Telecaster was released in the 70s and it boasts two humbucking pickups rather than the single coils that you would traditionally find on a Fender Tele. Not only that, but this guitar has also got a tremolo arm, which is something you don't necessarily see every day on a Tele. What's great about Fender Japan is that they are a lot more affordable instruments than the American Fenders, and they still produce the same high quality results. They're always limited edition. Normally when they're gone, they are gone, and it's a great opportunity for you to get something that undercuts the American price point a bit and is just a little bit different. Moving on to American Fenders, and when we went to do this video, annoyingly, we don't actually have any of the blonde American Teles in. However, you can obviously get the American Original Series, which is Fender America's answer to something like the Vinteras, where you can get authentic 50s and 60s Teles and Strats. And as well as that, you've also got the American Professional 2 Series that dropped last year. American-built Fenders are coveted and desired around the world because of their high craftsmanship, their attention to detail, and obviously everybody wants a Tele from the place where they all began, in the Fender factory in Corona, California. They're just about the best standard range Fenders that you can buy in terms of the quality, the build material, and the parts used. That is, unless you want to buy one from the Fender Custom Shop. So that brings us on to our sixth and final blonde Tele in this video, which is a Fender Custom Shop 1951 Nocaster. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the Nocaster is the original incarnation of the Tele that was released before they changed the name to the Telecaster. This Fender Custom Shop creation is just about the closest that you could possibly get in the modern age to walking into a guitar shop in 1951 and buying a Fender Tele. This guitar is new old stock, or NOS for short, which means there is no relicking at all to speak of on the guitar. It is like picking up this guitar as it was first created in the 50s. So there you have it. That's a blonde Telecaster at every single price point. But let us know what you guys thought though. Is the Blonde Tele the most iconic guitar of all time? Which of these guitars that we showed you today was your favourite? Let us know down in the comments. Thank you as always for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to see more things like this, and we will see you very soon.